What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another review. I'm so happy that you're here. So I got more guitar gear for you today. I want to talk locking tuners. Specifically, these are Guyker locking tuners. You can find these on Amazon. The price is $34.99, and I will have a link in the description. This is not a sponsored video. As a matter of fact, Guyker doesn't even know who the heck I am. So I purchased these on my own, and you'll have my full 100% honest opinion. Now, full disclosure, I have used Guyker locking tuners in the past, and that's why I purchased them again. Also for this particular style and the guitar that I'm going to be putting them on today. And it's also going to be a tutorial. So not just a review, but I'm going to show you how to change locking tuners or change the tuners out to locking tuners. Especially if you want to keep the current strings that you have. And I'm just going to show you my process. So without any more jibber jabber, let's get right into it. Let me crack this open. I haven't opened these yet. I gotta find where the opening is. So they always package these really nice so they don't rattle around. They're in their own little captive cardboard sleeve. The washers are really nice because they're a little bit thicker and they're also angled machine washers. So it doesn't take any guesswork as to what orientation to put these washers in. I'll pop one out so you can take a look. Got some really nice laser engraving, and they are protected so it doesn't get scratched. There is a little piece of plastic. I'll pull those off at the end of the video. They feel pretty smooth. Not the smoothest, but not the roughest. These are 18-to-1 and with a mount hole. So there are, just so you know, a couple of different styles of tuners you want to be aware of. And I'm going to pause the video and grab a set of stock tuners so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. Okay, so there's, like I said, a couple of different types of locking tuners, or just tuners in general. And this section would be more for beginner guitarists, people that have not gotten into guitar yet and are considering, things to upgrade. And in my opinion, this is one of two of the most easiest, however, most effective type of upgrades that you can do. The first and foremost being a string change. That will give you the most dramatic effect without doing any soldering or any rewiring or anything like that. And the locking tuners can change the look of your guitar and also make string changes much easier. Contrary to popular belief, locking tuners do not provide any more tuning stability than standard tuners do, other than they just keep the string locked in place so there's no chance of it popping out in case you don't have enough windings on the string post. For the smaller strings, they can tend to slip out of the hole if you don't have an overlap or something like that. But they don't lock the tuning knob. So, if things back out, that's still bound to happen. But I'm going to get into some quick tips real quick if you are considering purchasing some locking tuners to upgrade your current guitar, because most guitars, most budget guitars especially, do not come with locking tuners. And there, like I said in the beginning, there are two different types of locking tuners. You have the type like I'm showing you here, which I think is the most common, where you have a little screw mount hole right there. And you also have a single or a dual post or peg mount, which would be this one right here. This is off my Fender Squire guitar. And you'll notice on one side it doesn't have the screw hole, but it has two posts. So you want to kind of verify which one you have before you make your purchase. Tip number two, you want to pay attention to the length of the shaft. Most guitar tuners that come stock are going to be between 21 and 22 millimeters from the base of where it mounts at to the center of the hole. And as you see, it's 22.3, so might as well call it 22. These ones here although they're not going on the same guitar. And I already know these are 21 because it said it on the listing. So 1 millimeter difference isn't huge, but 2 millimeters is definitely going to make a big difference. I actually was set up to do a video on another set of tuners for the same guitar, but they wound up not working on that particular guitar because the posts were a little bit too short and I didn't feel comfortable using them on that guitar. So I used them on an acoustic that had just a slight bit thinner headstock, and they worked out just fine. So definitely want to pay attention, you know, take one of your tuners out, measure it, and then you'll know, you know, what's going to work and what's not going to work. There's also 2 gear ratios. There's 18:1, which is, to my knowledge, the most common, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there may be more than 2 gear ratios. 18:1 is the most common, which are these, and there are also 21:1. 21:1 is going to give you more turns on the tuning knob than 18:1, obviously. It's going to give less torque, but it's also going to give greater fine tunability. But in my mind, if you're using heavy gauge strings, definitely use 18:1 because the screw teeth are bigger and they're a little more chunky, so it's less likely that they're going to strip out ever. I just feel like that makes more sense to me based on what I know about screws and ratios and things like that. So, all right, so some essential tools that you're going to need. Some are optional, obviously. First and foremost, you're going to need some kind of wrench, a 10mm spanner, open adjustable, or I don't have one with me, but a 10mm socket and ratchet. And that is for the tuner nut that keeps everything into place. You're going to need a screwdriver for this type of installation with a very small Phillips head drill bit, or not drill bit, just a really small Phillips head bit. Optional tool is a winding machine or a string winder. This one you can do manual crank, or you can pull it off and it will attach to a drill. I'm going to use this on my little cordless electric screwdriver. And if you're doing a string change, then you need something to clip the strings with. I'm not going to be needing this today because I'm not going to clip him, but I just wanted to show what they look like. And obviously some sort of tuner for when you're all finished. I'm not going to be using this one. I'm going to be using my other one. That's a little more accurate, but you know, this will get the job done. But this just clips on the headstock and you can tune easily that way. And you might be asking yourself what this is. This is a pro tip. If you've never done it, or if it's been a long time since you've done a string change, this is lemon oil, which is mineral oil that's lemon scented and tinted. It's really good for oiling fretboards. Instead of really expensive specialized fretboard oil, get yourself a bottle of $6 Old English wood conditioner and cleaner, and it works excellent. I'm not going to be using that today because I already actually oiled my fretboard on my attempt to do the last video. So that's going to be put away. But I will tell you when I would be doing it at this whatever stage I'm into. So we pull these two tools aside and grab my guitar. Also, one other thing you may or may not need is a neck rest of some kind. I 3D printed this out of TPU, and this just helps support the guitar's neck while you're working on it. Gives you a little more space between you and your work surface, and it has different levels, a flat surface for when you flip the guitar over, and all that stuff. So you can find these if you have a 3D printer. You can find the files on different websites, but yeah. So we'll stick that aside and I'll be using that. But let me grab my guitar. We're going to be putting these on a West Creek Racer just because they kind of sort of similarly match the tuners that are already on there. So let me pause the video, grab the guitar, and we'll get going. All right, so a lot of this I'm going to be time-lapsing. I may voice over, I may not, but just to speed things along. So if you've never really messed with a guitar, One thing I like to do when I'm changing strings or changing tuners is I always start with the high strings first because they are the thinnest. If you go the other way and release the large strings and you work down, there's going to be a whole bunch of tension on these smaller gauge strings. You could risk breaking them, so I don't want to do that. So I'm going to start with that. It's just a habit that I've gotten into over some time, and it's worked for me 100% of the time. One thing I like to do, because I don't always remember which way to turn the string, and you can do it manually, but I'll pluck the string and I'll check and make sure as I pluck it that the tone is going down. And it is, so I'm going the right direction. Another pro tip, if you have a reverse headstock, let's say you have a right-handed guitar with a reverse headstock, you are going to need left-handed inline tuners. I found that out the hard way, but just so you know, because I didn't know at the time, save you some headache. So another pro tip when you're changing two locking tuners. Now, two locking tuners, if you're doing a string change, this is not going to apply. If you're just going to oil your fretboard and put the strings back on and you're not changing the tuners, this may not apply, depends on how many wraps you have. But this little 90-degree bent piece, I will clip off just to make threading the string through the new tuners a little bit easier. But you may not be able to afford to do that, so your application may vary. Here's right now is where I would oil the fretboard. I would apply my lemon oil all the way down, and then I would take a non-woven cloth or a microfiber cloth or something like that and just rub it in, but not like try and polish it, you know, just kind of just coat it. And I'll leave it sit, especially if it's something I haven't done in a long time or the first time I've done it on that particular fretboard. And I would let it sit and kind of absorb into the wood until I'm ready to put the strings back on. Then I'll go ahead and wipe off all the excess. Another quick tip, some of these you might get that have just standard looking washers. You want to be mindful which washers are stamped. So there's going to be a rounded side and there's going to be a very flat side. You always want to have the flat side facing down on the headstock and not the rounded side. I don't have to worry about it on these because they're pretty distinct, which I'll show you a little more clear when I go to put them on. All right, so we'll just do a quick comparison. So obviously these look a little bit different. The Guyker tuners that had this tuning head shape had a hole in the center, so they weren't going to match. I didn't want to have to drill a new hole right next to the existing hole. So I liked these also, so I'm opting to use these instead. So at this point, if I didn't already do it, which I already did, I would clean up any excess wood, blow out these holes because they don't do it at the factory. They just drill and stick them in. It just makes everything a little bit more clean. So. Okay, so that side's done. That's the only time we're going to need to turn this in this orientation. So you'll flip the guitar back over. And now we'll put on all of the retaining nuts and washers. Now, my personal preference for as far as torquing goes is I'll go to where it's just started to get snug, and then I'll go about another half turn. And that's not too tight. And so far I've had 100% success, and I've not stripped out a head on the thread or the nut itself. So those are done. So now there's really nothing else to do but to restring and tune the guitar. At this point, because now I'm ready to put the strings on, I would go ahead and wipe the excess lemon oil off of the guitar fretboard and get it ready for restringing or reattaching the strings. And in this case, because these are locking tuners, just like I said before, you want to make sure these are unscrewed enough to where the strings are going to fit through the peg hole. Otherwise, you're going to be poking it and it's not going to go in. You're going to wonder what's going on. And in reverse order, I'm going to start with the low D string first. And because that is a thicker string, you may have to loosen it just a little more, but I captured it and it's all good. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten it up. It's at this point where you want to make sure that the string is not going to overlap. There is no need for that anymore. Some luthiers say it's okay to overlap on the initial wrap. Some say never to overlap. I never found any issues with it. But locking tuners, they absolutely don't need that overlap there. So you want to make sure this, the windings stay under each other. And I get it too. I can't tell what's E and what's G or F or anything like that. So I just get it to where I can hear a tone. It doesn't sound like it's rattling or anything. And then I'll tune it up afterwards. Another pro tip while I'm doing this, while I'm finishing this up, is you want to make sure that the string gauge that you have or that you're going to use is going to be compatible on the tuners that you're going to. If you're using a super heavy gauge string, you may have to drill out the string hole a little bit, which isn't terrible, but if you're not comfortable doing that, then just verify the string gauge that the tuners can accept before you commit to that purchase. All right, so now I have all the strings. So now all I got to do is tune it and play it. So I'm going to end the video here. Like I said, it's not a full review on those tuners or on these tuners. I do like how they look. They keep the guitar in its classic shape. They keep it classic looking. So they are attractive tuners. Yeah, we'll see how they hold up. If you got anything out of the video, I'd appreciate a compliment. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them down in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them if I can. And if you got anything else out of the video, if you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe and hit that like button. That lets me know that you guys are watching and appreciating, and I appreciate that. So until the next review, I'll catch you guys then. See ya. Bye-bye.